These guys are ridiculous. These guys are ridiculous.
Now, how about them damn Celtics?
And we are back with another episode of How About Them Celtics, Talking C's with Bobby Kravitsky of SI Media Group. We're here before the Magic game, second game of the Celtics back-to-back, after their two-game sweep of the Cavs in the mini-series. Bobby, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I want to clarify, I'm right next to Jack, but it looks like I'm in some kind of very weird, like almost personal security setting where it's like, for your safety, we need you in this penalty box of sorts. Just want to clarify, we're just at TD Garden doing the show today.
That we are. My headphones cut out, but I was hoping you guys can still hear me. So when I throw it over to Bobby, I'm going to reset my headphones. But we're still rocking with the show because that's called professionalism, baby. We're going to start with last night's Cavs game. Thursday night's Cavs game, the second of their two-game series against Cleveland, swept them. Last night was a wire to last night before recording this, I should say, and I guess we're posting this today. I get so confused with the recording. Wire-to-wire win for the Celtics over the Cavaliers. Got off to a much, much better start in that one. Good offense throughout, good ball movement. Joe Mazzulla talked about, the cutting after the game. I asked him about it. Also asked him about the defensive switch-ups. They made adjustments in the fourth quarter on Tuesday, and then they made even more adjustments on Thursday. They let the Cavs stick in it a little too long, and Jaylen Brown talked about it, but it did feel, in my opinion, like one of their more team victories of the season. So I was impressed on that front. Bobby, what'd you take from Thursday's game against the Cavs?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, as a team victory. That's how I labeled it in my game story. And then I really think maybe the biggest difference maker, certainly the ball movement. And that was something that, I talked about with Jaylen and Jason afterwards. And Jaylen pointed to how they could have been more aggressive on both sides, and they didn't have, in his words, that pop, that energy, but still playing the right way allowed them to have an assist on over 50% of their field goals. But to me, I think arguably an even greater difference maker in the outcome last night was how well the Celtics protected the perimeter. The Cavaliers only had 4 3-point attempts in the fourth quarter until the final 20 seconds when the game was already decided. And that, to me, was crucial to the Celtics being able to just grind away that win last night.
Yeah, I mean, the Celtics did so much of everything. I mean, if you look at the box score from yesterday, and Jack, we did this after the game, you can't really pick out the best guy. Jaylen Brown had himself a really great scoring night. He was the driving force behind Boston's great start. I mean, he had 18 in the first half, I want to say. Donovan Mitchell on the other end was scoring at will too, so they had a nice little duel as friends. But I mean, aside from Brown and his scoring outburst, you had Tatum play well. Porzingis had a bunch of points quick and then kind of didn't have to do anything in the second half. Drew Holiday was 7 of 11, and he had 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and Derek White had 14 points. And then off the bench, Al Horford had his fingerprints all over the win, and he only took 4 shots. He had 10 rebounds for the second time in 3 games. I asked Mazzulla about it with my heart beating out of my chest, but I asked nonetheless.
Couldn't tell though, Sam. It was a smooth delivery.
I listened back to it and I was like, okay, not as bad as I thought. But he told us, he was like, hey, that's just his competitiveness. He's an excellent teammate and he can go 8, 10, 12 minutes without touching the ball and he's still ready to go. He came in late in the game for Porzingis and drilled a dagger 3. So I think Horford can be a little bit of a tone setter for the rest of the team in that respect, because a game like yesterday, to come full circle, did not necessarily have a best player. Everybody just kind of did what they were supposed to do, and the team wound up coming out on top because of it.
Yeah, I mean, we both talked about that in our post-game recap. I was trying to figure out, like, okay, what's the title going to be of the video? Who was the best player? Because that's how I usually do it. And it was like, there's nobody that really stood out. Like, everyone kind of played their role. Everyone did different things. Everyone stood out in different areas, whether it was Kristaps playing the free safety role from the corner, Jaylen Brown hitting his super cool turnaround mid-range shots, Jason Tatum coming up big in the fourth quarter, Derek White crashing the offensive glass, Al Horford crashing the offensive glass. Like, everyone kind of had their own niche in that game. And I wrote about it today for Celtics blog. It really felt like everyone was sacrificing on offense, especially because in order for this team to work, the 5 guys in the starting lineup who are all comfortable and all almost used to having the ball in their hands have to be willing to give it up and find other ways to score. And we saw Jaylen Brown cutting off the ball. We saw Drew Holiday cutting off the ball. We saw Derek White crashing the glass. We saw Kristaps Porzingis moving off the ball. Like, that off-ball movement and that commitment to staying energized on offense when the ball's not in your hand is how this offense is going to work. And I thought that was really crucial in that second game against the Cavs. So that was the thing that stood out to me. In other news this week, the Celtics did bring another player on board. Drew Peterson was signed. He spent 2 years at Rice, 3 years at USC, and was spending this season with the Sioux Falls Skyforce, Miami Heat G League team. Also, can we just talk about how crazy it is that the Heat G League team is in the Dakotas? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? For what?
You know how
Like,
mad I would be if I was playing
Curious.
on the Heat and then they sent me to Dakota to play in a lesser league? I'd be furious. You go from the beach weather in Miami, it's nice all the time. You're right by the water. And then you're in some place that some people don't even think actually exists. Kind of
Sioux
tough.
Falls,
You know why
gorgeous,
they
though.
do that, I bet? That's Pat Riley motivation. That, hey, if you want to be a part of this organization and make it all the way up, when you get down there, you're grinding to get out and get to South Beach.
Sioux Falls kind of pretty, though. Low key.
That
I'd be
looks
mad
nice.
as hell if I was there.
No, not
No
based on
Google
the
search
pictures.
is going to change my mind.
It's certainly not Miami, but Drew Peterson does join the Celtics as a two-way player. I think this is most significant because they cut Nathan Knight, another two-way player, to bring this guy in, so they must have seen something. I did the reaction video for How About Them Celtics. If you'd like some full thoughts and see the highlights, check that video out. My biggest takeaway is curious to know y'all's thoughts. We had a comment on the video, and I said this during the video as well. It looks like Drew Peterson grew up as a guard and then hit a growth spurt because he is very comfortable with the ball in his hands. He creates his own shot. He's comfortable out of the post. He almost likes working out of the post. He's 6'9", 24 years old, but he dribbles like a point guard. He playmakes like a point guard. Didn't see much of him on defense. He does look a bit slow. He's very scrawny, so that could be a question mark, but shoots 41% from deep, very comfortable with the ball in his hands, very comfortable creating his own shot. I know he was a big spark plug, energy, driving force that final season at USC from what I saw online. His shot does have a bit of a hitch in it, which is a bit weird. But if it shoots 41% from deep on 4.5 attempts a night, you don't really question it. Bobby, curious to know your thoughts on Drew Peterson.
Well, if you're 6'9", you can afford to have a hitch as long as you're accurate. So that, and he doesn't look like someone who's bothered by being contested by a defender. So that's a huge perk. And there's an obvious line of comparison to draw between him and Sam Hauser, who recently went back to his roots in the G League to check out Jordan Walsh and company and talked about that journey. And for Hauser, that development was crucial. And for Peterson, to be in the Miami Heat infrastructure is very important about where you start, where you get that first opportunity. Jack, you touched on his game, how he likes to bring the ball up. You see 6'9" and a shooter, and you might assume stretch 4. Not the case with this individual. I also love that he's active off the ball. He'll give it up, and he's not just recharging the stamina bar. He'll relocate. He'll end up with a corner 3 out of it or curl off a screen. So, yeah, defensively, long ways to go. But it wasn't that many years ago that the same was true of Sam Hauser.
Yeah, and to follow on the Sam Hauser train, this signing seems to be a calculated move, especially with Hauser on a $1 million per year deal through the end of next season. After that, he's going to be like, bring me my money. He's going to be the football coach meme where he's like, everybody, in the locker room's hyped, bring me my money. Because Hauser has led the league in three-point shooting this season. He's obviously going to garner more than $1 million. He'll probably get anywhere from $15 to $20 million. You saw Duncan Robinson get paid a few years back just for being able to knock down threes. Hauser, on top of that, has proven to be a very worthy defender. So this is a very long-winded way of me being like, hey, this is them throwing out a backup plan and trying to recreate what they did with Hauser with Drew Peterson. Try and get another guy that has size that can knock down the 3-ball. The only thing that you really are going to want to see from him improvement-wise is bulk up a little bit. We talked about this on the beginning of the last pod when it was like, yeah, he turned sideways, you can't see him. So good if you're trying to hide from defenders, but bad if you're trying to play defense.
I will also say, it feels like the Celtics are committed to this role player farm system approach. I wrote about it before the season. They're consistently bringing in players that fit certain roles. For years, the G League approach that the Celtics and a lot of other teams took was, look at this super young guy. He could develop into a star. Let's see what happens. And then if they don't develop into a star, they're nothing, right? And that's useless. Over the past few years, you've seen the Celtics develop a Sam Hauser, which is a at the time, just 3-point shooter, but now a 3-and-D guy who is a quality rotation player. You've seen them develop Luke Cornett into a guy who can give them spot minutes. You look at the guys they brought in this summer: Jordan Shaquille, great 3-point shooter; Taylor Funk, another guy who can shoot with some size, right? Like Nemish Kate, a great offensive rebounder. You can see the vision of a solid role player. they're picking guys who aren't necessarily going to be stars, but can be high-level role players. This is the approach the Heat have taken for years. That it's taken so long for the rest of the league to catch up. And this is why they had a Gabe Vincent. This is why they had Duncan Robinson. It's why they had Max Strus. It's why they have Caleb Martin. It's why they have all these players who fit in so beautifully. And everyone's like, where they keep finding these guys? Because they're not targeting stars. They're targeting guys who can play roles. That's finally what the Celtics are doing. And this isn't a knock on Danny Ainge or a knock on anybody else around the league, but like Brad Stevens has taken a very specific approach of, we don't need to get stars. We need guys who could potentially grow into players who can play around the stars we already have. And I think that's exactly what Drew Peterson is. I'm not saying he's going to play 20 minutes a night for the Celtics like Sam Hauser. There's obviously anomalies, but you can see the vision and you can see the point he could get to where he could be playing 10 to 15 minutes a night alongside Tatum and Brown. And I think that's the important part to calculate when you're looking at this G League farm system nowadays.
What you're seeing, Jack, is they're betting on traits now as opposed to tantalizing athleticism. And under the punitive nature of the new collective bargaining agreement, it's more crucial than ever that you're able to develop players of this ilk and have them on team-friendly contracts. Sam Hauser, we've talked about it, where the Celtics might not be able to afford to re-sign him because of the penalties that will come with doing so, especially if Jalen and Jason and maybe even Kristaps are still here. The belief is that they'll extend Drew Holiday. And so at that point, there's going to be some significant roster cuts to this rotation. Hauser, you would think, ends up being one of them. So to have someone with similar traits that they'll have a few years to develop before that time comes, that's going to be crucial, that they're able to find different success stories. And hopefully Drew Peterson, for their sake, becomes one of them.
Yeah, and to what you had to say, Jack, about developing the role players from the G League, it's a very good strategy, because one thing that we kind of will mention on the pod every once in a while is how crazy it must be as an NBA player who has been a basketball player their whole life, that is the best guy on the floor at all times, to have to learn how to go sit there and sit in the corner. When you're coming off of a two-way deal, it must at the very least be a humbling experience to come to the league that way. You know that you're not going to be the guy, and a lot of these guys end up developing a specific skill, like you said, Bobby, and traits that can become helpful as a role player. You're not going to have anybody looking to figure out how they can be the star. How can it be their team? They've figured that their place in the league is doing the dirty work early, and they're going to become the best that they can possibly be at doing it. And that is a great way to pick out guys. It's a great way to save money, to Bobby's point, with the new CBA, because you need to find some way to fill roster spots meaningfully without having to break the bank, because you just can't anymore. You'll get tied up and restricted any way you possibly can.
100%. I like the Drew Peterson signing. I like the vision, and clearly the Celtics had him in mind when they cut Nathan Knight, because it was rapid fire. I mean, we were recording the last talking season. They're like, yeah, let's do this right afterwards, so they can't talk about
guys, that the teams are signing players ahead of the G League Winter Showcase in Orlando next week, almost like they don't want to deal with the competition of, if we wait and this player shows out, it might be harder to sign him. So let's just pounce on someone we like now.
Maybe they're like, we really want to win, so we're going to sign all the best guys beforehand.
It's a trend going around right now that players are getting scooped up ahead of the showcase.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to Tyler Rucker of No Ceilings. He was like, yeah, I was shocked the Heat didn't keep him in. And I mean, we know the Heat are notorious for bringing in good guys. So if he was surprised the Heat didn't bring him in, that probably means Drew Peterson's a good player. Excuse me, player. Shout out to Tyler Rucker, No Ceilings. Go check him out. But last thing we're going to talk about today, Celtics just wrapped up a 2-game series against the Cavaliers. Now they immediately enter on the second night of a back-to-back after the second game of the Cavs. They're warming up for it now. A 2-game series against the Orlando Magic, who have given them lots of trouble over the past couple seasons. Jason Tatum was asked about Eddie House's comments and the Magic's response after last night's game. He kind of chuckled, said, I don't really know what that's about. Haven't heard. I love Eddie, but it's a tough team. They play us tough, and they've gotten the best of us lately. Celtics are going into this first game down some players. No Al Horford. Looks like Kristaps and Jalen Brown might not play either. Luke Cornett also out. Could be Nemi time for those wondering. If he does play, I can see him warming up on the court below right now. We'll have to see what happens. But, Bobby, what are you looking for in these 2 games against the Magic?
Well, it's tough because you look at what happened the last time these 2 teams played on Black Friday, the fact that the Magic have won 4 straight against Boston, that the Celtics are undefeated at home and trying to extend that streak. And yet Orlando has not played since Monday, and they're healthy. And you mentioned the injury report for the Celtics, and it feels like a scheduled loss. And so how Boston's rotation, it was a team win the other night. Lamar Stevens got some run. I think there's going to be moments where he's in as a small ball 5 in this Friday night game. It's going to be really interesting to see if that extended rotation, they're going to get an opportunity tonight. Can they capitalize on it?
If I had to make bets, the Celtics would go 4 for 4 on all of those guys not playing. I think they're not going to rush anybody into this game coming off a back-to-back against Cleveland. To the Orlando having a bunch of days of rest thing, I half believe like that's a negative in the NBA. The Celtics came out dead tired after not playing since Friday. Not dead tired, but like they came out flat against the Cavs on Tuesday. And it took them a little while to get their legs underneath them. So I'd keep my eyes on that for the Orlando side of this. It does suck that the Celtics don't get a chance to, one, try and get their lick back against the Magic tonight with their full roster. Two, defend home court with their full roster, because I've enjoyed the storyline of them not losing at home. It feels like it's just starting to get legs, and it does feel like a schedule loss tonight. So we're not going to have too much fun with it if they drop this one. It's going to die pretty quickly. I know Jay King just did an article today or last night about their home court and, you know, how they look at it. It would be very, very ironic if they just dropped it today. But who knows? You need to get some payback against Mo Wagner. That's for sure. Unbelievable that he had a career game against them in the in-season tournament.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm curious. And by the time this comes out, like, unless you listen to it right away, the answer is probably clear. I do wonder how they defend the Magic with no big men, because this team has struggled with physicality this season. And without Kristaps, without Al Horford, you're really missing some of that. Nimish Kid is the obvious answer. You know, just roll with him at center and you'll have physicality that way. They played Lamar Stevens the other night when Luke Cornett was out as well. I do wonder if they just say, okay, Lamar Stevens, go muck up this game. Go try to bully Mo Wagner in the post. See what you can do. Bobby, are you envisioning any Lamar Stevens minutes during this Magic series? Because it feels like a series built for him.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, that I think along with Keita, we're going to see Stevens, who got some run yesterday, and he was a +1. I think overall he was a positive contributor. That stat is an accurate reflection of how he fared with his minutes. I think he's going to get opportunities as a small ball 5, and that also could create problems for Wagner in particular, trying to run up and down the floor with the Celtics if they're willing to push the tempo. And so it's going to be really interesting to see. I think O'Shea Brissett will get run, assuming that Jalen and Kristaps are both out tonight, along with Cornett. And so, again, it's about the extended rotation. And those are energy guys. Those are dirt dogs that you expect to handle the physicality and fight back against the Magic in that regard. So it's going to be interesting to see, because this matchup could work out in their favor, but they're also going to have to deal with highly skilled young players in the likes of Banchero and Franz Wagner.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he fares with some continuity, because we saw him play yesterday without having played since the Bulls game, and that was less than a minute of play. Before that, it was the Magic game. That was 1 minute of game time. We haven't seen Stevens actually get real playing time yet this season. Never mind actually have back-to-back games of actual minutes. So I want to see if he's able to build off that. Like you said, Bobby, he didn't have a negative impact on this game. And when you're coming off the DNPs and you're not in the rotation, that's really your only job. You don't want anybody to notice that you're out there for the wrong reason. If he's able to make a good impact against the Magic tonight, I like that for all of us, because we're all Lamar Stevens guys. I like his intensity. I wish he could knock down threes more consistently. I know throughout his career he's improved on it, but from what we saw yesterday, it's not quite there yet. But he can do some super cool dunks. And then if he does well, I can tweet about him fictitiously being Brad Stevens' son.
I mean, he did cut well yesterday. He had that one nice dunk that Horford, I think it was Horford, or somebody found him on
offensive
after
rebound.
a Horford rebound.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Horford on the rebound. He came from the baseline and got the dunk.
Mm-hmm. So you can see the vision with Lamar Stevens impacting the game. I will say, I said this to Sam, Bobby, when we did our little recap. I'm almost surprised O'Shea Brissett hasn't gotten more run. He got a lot of run at the start of the season, then it's kind of trailed off, but they've been focusing a lot on offensive rebounds, and that's something he does extremely well. You have to imagine the lack of a three-point shot has kind of hurt him in that regard, because you just can't space the floor and cut effectively if you can't shoot, because teams won't guard you there. But I do want to see him get some more run, and like you said, it does feel like he could get some over this next 2-game series.
Yeah, and another skill that he brings to the table is he has the ability to switch onto fives and keep them off the glass. Now, Mo Wagner is a big boy. That's a difficult challenge there, but he's been able to do it against centers who are 7-footers in the past. So again, when he gets his opportunity, if he's keeping Wagner off the boards, limiting those second chances, which is how he did some of his damage in that Black Friday matchup, that's going to keep him on the floor. The longer you're out there, the more you're able to get in rhythm and get involved and make an impact. So I do see Brissett getting an opportunity, and then it's a question of what you make of it. And not to get long-winded here, but another point I wanted to bring up with this game that ties into what happened Thursday against Cleveland is, along with the ball movement and the cutting, I thought the Celtics overall did an excellent job with the effectiveness of their screen setting. And one of the ways that we saw that unfold is in the third quarter, there was a play where Porzingis set a screen that forced Jared Allen to have to switch on to Drew Holiday. And that allowed Drew to do what he does best, which is be a scorer. He's more that than facilitator, as willing as he is to fill the other role. And he just carved up Jared Allen and ended up going downhill for an uncontested layup. And being able to do that, whether it's Mo Wagner or whatever big you can force to switch onto Tatum or Drew Holiday or any of your big name players that are available tonight, that's another way to consistently manufacture buckets.
Yeah, I would be interested to see that, because you do have a spot for a big Drew Holiday game, big Derek White game, Jack, right? Maybe he has a lot of extra shots tonight if all those other guys are out. So you could see a lot of those guys hit their overs tonight. Shout out to the pregame stream, which I'm sure we'll talk about parlays. But yeah, also curious to see if Kata makes an impact, because we mentioned it earlier today. He very well could get some extra run tonight. It would be kind of cool if he was all over the offensive glass, because we saw that against, who was it he played against? Atlanta that time. I mean, it was all his misses, but still, he was hustling. He was working hard. It's what you want to see from a guy that's trying to get extra minutes.
You know who won't be getting extra minutes is Delano Banton, who was just ruled out by the Celtics due to a non-COVID illness. Real hospital Celtics game tonight.
Did we
New
get
England
him
Baptist
sick?
Hospital is really getting their money's worth in this
New
one.
England,
It feels like
New England Baptist Hospital cashing in on the misfortune of others.
Oh man, did we hit on every point? Did we miss anything? What do you guys? Did I get it?
We went around the horn.
There we go. All right. Well, Bobby, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just curious to see if the Celtics, even if this does prove to be a scheduled loss, if they're at full strength or at least close to it on Sunday, and then they get to really, face this challenge of the physicality the Magic have, and it's more of an earnest revenge game.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate it very much. Make sure to subscribe to How About Them Celtics and read all of Bobby's work on SI Media Group, but it's on Inside the Celtics on Sports Illustrated. Appreciate it, and I'll let Sam take it out.
Hey, thank you very much for listening or watching. If you're watching or on YouTube or you're in Bobby's article, make sure you subscribe to the How About Them Celtics YouTube channel. Regardless, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new Talkin' C's episodes, or the full-length pods, or the game recaps, or the trade rumor breakdowns, or the pregame streams, which happen a half hour before every game. Those are on YouTube as well as Facebook. Other socials are Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The @ is at How About Them C's. You can reach out to us via email at hbtcpod@gmail.com. If you want to find us individually on social media, Bobby's handle is at Bobby Kravitsky for Twitter. You can follow Jack at JacksWannabe. You can follow me at Sam LaFrance NBA. That's it for us. Bye.
Taco, come on.
Taco's having some fun here.
That is bogus. These guys are